So AOC was featured in the New Yorker, and it was quite an interview. A lot of people have already talked about it. We're a little bit late to the game, but I think this is from February 14th, so it's not that long ago. It's our Valentine. He was our Valentine, and the headline is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez an insider now? What do you mean now? Now? What do you mean now?
You're doing an article on the New Yorker on her.
Now? You mean now? What do you mean now? Is she now an insider? Now. Okay, well, when we spoke earlier this month by Zoom, Ocasio-Cortez talked at length not only about the impasse the Democrats now face, but also the general atmosphere of working in Congress. Honestly, it is a shit show, she said. It's scandalizing every single day. What is surprising to me is how it never stops being scandalizing. You don't say, never stops surprising you. I guess you got to say the serenity prayer then, huh, AOC? God grant me the courage to change what I can, the serenity to accept the things I can't, and a $30,000 ball gown to wear to this thing at the Met. Is that how the serenity prayer goes? I don't know. The interview took place on February 1st and has been edited for length and for clarity. Remnick says much of the Biden administration's agenda in Congress has pretty much stalled. A term that began with lofty FDR-like ambitions is now at a standstill. How would you rate the president's performance after a year? Is it still in the A+ range, AOC? Because that's what you guys were saying before, and now we have a whole year. And she says there are some things that are outside of the president's control, and there's very little one can say about that. With Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. But I think there are some things within the president's control, and his hesitancy around them has contributed to a situation that isn't as optimal. Really? That's how she describes it now. Less than optimal. What is that? Some kind of new Common Core grading that I ever heard about? He was just an A+ a year ago, and now he's less than optimal. So what is that, like an A-? Less than optimal. Okay. AOC, she continued saying, my concern is that we're getting into analysis paralysis, and we don't have much. Oh, is that from the here to the now to the when to the what? And we really don't have much time. She is such a bullshit. God damn it. We should really not take this present political moment for granted and do everything that we can. Oh, no, analysis paralysis. We've become a nation of anaplegics. Somebody should do something. She's right. Somebody should do something. If you see something, say something. That's step one. Good work, AOC. Somebody should do. Boy, if only you knew a squad of people who actually had power and could vote as a block. If only. We should do everything we can. She's doing nothing. They're doing nothing. At the beginning of last year, many of us in the progressive wing, but not just the progressive wing, were saying we don't want to repeat a lot of this hand-wringing that happened in 2010. When there was this very precious opportunity in the Senate for things to happen. There was another time. I remember another time when there was this moment for things to happen when you guys were the swing votes and could have controlled the House. You could have controlled legislation, and you didn't on purpose. I remember that. That was very much like that 2010 thing you're talking about. That's what I think. So here's the interviewer says to her, people in the Biden White House would argue that the margins are the margins and Manchin's politics are what they are. He comes from a state that is dominated by a much more conservative vote, and Sinema is unpredictable. They would argue that they made concession after concession and that they still got nowhere. AOC responds to that by saying, the presidency is so much larger than just the votes in the legislature. This is something that we saw with President Obama. I think we're seeing this dynamic perhaps extend a little bit into the Biden administration with a reluctance to use executive power. A reluctance to use executive power. Yeah, like, I don't know, Going back to the Obama President Droney McKill list, maybe going back to that? Or does she mean use it to do anything not for mega corporatism? Is that what she means, a reluctance to use executive power? Does she mean that he's reluctant to use it to do anything that's not for mega corporatism? Because that's true. I mean, not using your power to force any meaningful change, that's what she's saying. He's not using his power to force any meaningful change. She's saying Biden is not using his power to push for any meaningful change. Like, who does Biden think he is? A member of the squad or something? The interviewer says, what is it like day to day being a member of this institution, which I have to say from the outside looks like a shit show? Okay. Well, she says, honestly, it is a shit show.
Oh, God.
You know, that would make a great title for the Netflix sequel. That doc they did about the squad. It was called Knock Down the House. Remember that? That would be, I think they should do a sequel. And I think it should be called, honestly, it's a shit show. What is surprising to me is how it never stops being scandalizing. Some folks perhaps get used to it or desensitized to the many different things that may be broken. But sometimes to be in a room with some of the most powerful people in the country and see the ways that they make decisions, sometimes they're just susceptible to groupthink, susceptible to self-delusion. They're not bad people. That's what she's saying. And she's describing herself. That's what she's trying to do. Sketch it out for us. What does it look like? Yeah, give us the micro and the macro. Give us the how to get to the where. To the what? Sandy the bartender, pour us some truth bombs. Because you know that was her name before she ran for office.
I didn't know that.
Her name was Sandy. They used to call her Sandy the bartender, and now she's AOC, the congressperson who wants to be president like JFK. You see where she got the AOC? She says the Build Back Better Act is the vast majority of Biden's agenda. The infrastructure plan, as important as it is much smaller. So we were talking about pairing these two things together. The Progressive Caucus puts up a fight, and then somewhere around October, there comes a critical juncture. I do vaguely remember this, but she's describing it in corporate gibberish, so I forgot what the fuck we were talking about. She continues, the president is then under enormous pressure from the media. There's this idea that the president can't get things done and that his presidency is at risk. It's what I find to be just a lot of sensationalism. However, the ramifications of that were being very deeply felt. And you have people running tough races, and he needs to win. Enormous pressure from the media. Can't you just have tech firms censor them? Why don't you just do that? She then went on and said, and so I'm sitting there in the group with some of the most powerful people in the country talking about how if we pass the infrastructure bill right now, then this will be what the president can campaign on. The American people will give him credit for it. He can win his presidency on it. If we don't pass it now, then we've risked democracy itself. Really? Did you know that democracy itself hinged on Build Back Better? Wait a minute, didn't that fail? Oh my God, has democracy died? What a shit show! He says, you've used a phrase, if we have a democracy 10 years from now. Do you think we won't? Well, why start now? We don't have one now. We don't have a democracy now. And that's not hyperbole. This has been proven by the Cambridge study. We do not have a democracy. We live in an oligarchy. Your vote doesn't matter. AOC responds that Sandy responds and says, I think there's a very real risk that we will not have a democracy, she says. What we risk is having a government that perhaps postures as a democracy and may try to pretend that it is, but it isn't. That's what we have right now, you fucking liar. You unbelievable bullshitter. Oh, my. Anyway, we will risk. What we risk is having a government that perhaps postures as a democracy. That's what we risk. And by what we will risk, she means what has been happening for a long time, since a long time ago. He then asks, is it healthy or not for the Democratic Party for Nancy Pelosi to remain in place as the Speaker, as leader of the Democratic caucus in the House? That's the question. She responds, it's really all about a specific moment that we're in. We are in such a delicate moment of the day-to-day, particularly with the threats to our democracy. I believe that, at the end of the day, there's going to be a generational change in our leadership. That is just simple fact. Now, when that particular moment happens, I think it's a larger question of conditions and circumstances. So if I read that right, what she's saying is, yeah, we're going to have a change of power inside the Democratic Party because Nancy Pelosi will eventually die of old age. I think that's what she's saying. She says, you don't want to go near this one. No, she'll definitely go near this one. She'll just babble inanely about it and hope that you accept it. That's what she's going to do. Well, let's see. It's a tough question. It's not even just a question of the Speaker. It's a question of our caucus. I wish the Democratic Party had more stones. I wish our party was capable of truly supporting both leadership that can address root causes. You son of a bitch. You saying that into a fucking mirror? She hasn't. Her stones, the only stones AOC has ever shown is when she said, I was committing violence against her, which actually showed her cowardice. She's a coward who will never stand up to power or the establishment. She is the establishment. She wants to be the establishment. She has 12 million Twitter followers, and she's used them to do what? Nothing. She tells you to go organize. Why don't you tell those 12 million people to go put some pressure on someone and the Democratic Party and have some stones? Because AOC is a phony. That's why. And if you want to spend time voting and raising money for campaigning for those people, then have at it. Good for you. The rest of the world has moved on.
You know, Jimmy, I just want to remind everybody that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in April 2021, she saluted the Biden administration, saying the new president had exceeded progressives' expectations.
That's right. That's who she is. That's who she is.
Those were her stones.
And now she's saying, I wish our party was capable of truly supporting bold leadership that can address root causes. So what she's really saying is this whole thing doesn't work. That's what she's saying. The whole thing doesn't work. We didn't use our power when we had it. The squad didn't vote as a block. We'll never use our leverage, and nobody else is ever going to do it either. She's describing who she is. I wish I had more stones. I wish I was capable of truly supporting bold leadership that can address root causes. That's what AOC is saying. And Kyle Kulinski will tell you she's not corrupt because Kyle Kulinski is inventing new words to defend politicians because Kyle Kulinski's got Washington brain or whatever the fuck it is he calls it. So there you go. So Ryan Grimm from the D.C. Bureau Chief, he will endorse this. Yes, she's right. And all of her fucking apologists will endorse this and say, yes, she's right. She's a great person. And you should give her money. And you should donate. They'll never tell you to stop giving her money. Ryan Grimm, Cenk Uygur, Kyle Kulinski, those fucks, they'll never tell you to stop donating to Democrats or voting for them or Crystal Ball. They'll never tell you that. And so enjoy their shows. They're getting Russia wrong at the top of their lungs. And they're holding conferences where they want to give you your money to more Democratic politicians. That's their big idea. You need to give more money to new Democrats. That's their big idea. I'm not fucking kidding. I don't know. If I had $50 million, I bet you that would be on my brain too. Hey, we're doing stand-up in Houston and Dallas on the 24th and the 22nd of March, and we're doing stand-up in Los Angeles March 4th and 6th. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all our live shows. Bye.